Does Ned remember Peter at the end of Spider-Man Brand New Day? And if so, how? Well, it's all tied to the fact that a brain surgeon cast the spell. Hey everyone, Colton here. So the debate at hand is, at the end of Spider-Man Brand New Day, did we see the Forget Peter Parker spell break for Ned? Does he remember his old friend? Now, I think the answer is obvious, but some disagree, so I'm going to prove that I am right. What we're going to do is recap the scene, I'll remind you of how the spell works, and we'll go through previous scenes in Brand New Day as well as in No Way Home that address Ned and MJ's memory, or lack thereof, of Peter Parker. And I'll explain how all of this brings us to the correct answer on whether or not Ned remembers Peter and their friendship come the end of Brand New Day. So the final scene pans out like this. Ned and Peter run into each other. Ned recognizes him as Flower Guy from the party, really only because Peter is holding flowers again. Peter then introduces himself as Peter and extends his hand for a handshake. Ned accepts, Peter keeps hold of his hand, looks at Ned like he's about to try something, and then we see Peter begin their best friend handshake from the previous films. The final thing, by the way, that these two did when they said goodbye in No Way Home. So they begin doing the handshake, Ned looks confused, but his muscle memory takes over and he participates in this elaborate handshake with his old friend to completion. And yes, I did just say to completion, I'm sorry. We then see Ned shake his head as if he has snapped out of a trance, and he looks up and says, "Peter." Now, to me, this is clear as day. The filmmaker's intent here is for us to now know that Ned remembers Peter and that the spell has been broken for Ned. And if you want to go further with it and get a little theory time going, I think that perhaps we could learn later on that this was a failsafe left in place by Dr. Strange, who was a neurosurgeon after all, and that this little flaw left in the spell was a loophole that he put in there to bypass the barrier created by this spell, and that loophole, of course, is muscle memory. Now, what is muscle memory? Well, muscle memory can bypass amnesia because it relies on different brain areas known as procedural or implicit memory rather than conscious memory. It uses the cerebellum, the basal ganglia, and motor cortex instead of the hippocampus. Now, the hippocampus, it handles things like facts, life events, and names. Amnesia, which is what this spell is, it's an amnesia spell, amnesia affects the hippocampus directly, making it hard to recall personal history. Automatic skill memory, however, also known as implicit memory, with that we have the cerebellum and the basal ganglia, which store movement patterns like typing, riding a bike, or playing the piano. You see, amnesia usually spares these deeper brain regions. Even if suffering from amnesia, people can still perform learned physical skills without remembering when they learned them. For example, if you're suffering from amnesia and have no memory of your childhood, that doesn't mean that you have now forgotten how to ride a bike, even though you learned to ride the bike when you were a child. Now, at the end of No Way Home, Dr. Strange casts a spell that makes everyone forget Peter Parker. This results in no one having any memory of Peter whatsoever. This spell is affecting the hippocampus, conscious memory, the place where things like knowing a person are stored. But as we see in No Way Home and in Brand New Day, there are things that linger, such as MJ continuing to wear her Black Dahlia necklace and having this look of deja vu when she meets Peter in the coffee shop. The way the spell works is that essentially there is a metaphysical barrier created in the physical mind that is blocking those memories from reaching the surface, the conscious level of the mind. That's why even when MJ reads the letter from Peter detailing everything, nothing is coming back. There is no collection of words that can jog their memory or break that barrier. And that is why when Jean is in MJ's mind earlier in the film, we hear her say, "There's nothing about you up here," referring to Peter. Now, some are using that little line of dialogue as intentional evidence to tell the audience that MJ's memories of Peter are truly gone, erased, deleted, overwritten, whatever. They don't exist, therefore they cannot come back. But no, if you pay attention and observe the film in its full context of all the information given, we're actually learning the opposite. We are learning that those memories, they're there, but they are very deep down. We have to remember that at this point in the film, when Jean is in MJ's mind, this is a Jean who has yet to unlock her full power. For most of the film, Jean's abilities only extend 33 feet, and she is unable to enter the mind of Spider-Man for any significant span of time. But later in the film, when her powers are more fully realized, she tells Peter that her powers are stronger now, and she now may be able to enter his mind and control him unlike before. Now, of course, we don't know if that's the case because this time Peter actually invites her in. He doesn't fight back and try to kick her out. But it is established clear as day at the end of the film that Jean's powers have doubled since the last time we met Count, which implies what? Well, that they were weaker earlier in the film, right? Hell, it more than implies it, she straight up says it. And then we see her freeze everyone within a kilometer of the island, which means, think about that, she had a 33 feet distance, right? And that has now extended to a kilometer, which means her powers have increased by 9,841.94%, a nearly 100 times scaling. This Jean Grey, at this power set, may very well be able to poke and prod around enough in a mind to find her way beyond that metaphysical barrier created by that magic spell. But the Jean from earlier in the film that was in MJ's mind at that point, it is perfectly plausible to assume that she would not be able to do that. But really, guys, Jean has nothing to do with any of this, I don't think. I mean, some have theorized that maybe with her powers reaching such a high level at the end of the film, and us seeing Ned and MJ be a part of that freeze and the tears we see running down MJ's cheek, that maybe that is what began to cause a crack in that barrier created by the spell. I don't hate that theory, I'm fine with that, and I also like the idea of that barrier being shaken, and perhaps that is why we see MJ sitting on the school rooftop holding her Black Dahlia necklace and smiling at the end of the film. Maybe those memories are beginning to come back because that barrier has been shaken. And, you know, I think just like how Ned and Peter's handshake, the last thing they did before the spell was cast, I think that broke the spell for Ned. I think the last thing that Peter and MJ did before the spell when they were saying goodbye, which was they kissed. I think Jean's little snide comment and mockery of Peter thinking true love's kiss broke the spell, I think that is what is going to finally break the spell for MJ. I think they're foreshadowing it right there in the movie. I think MJ is going to fall in love with Spider-Man all over again. And I think we'll see her initiate a kiss, and then the barrier will break and the memories will come back. And to any of the goobers who say, well, they kissed in the movie and the memories didn't come back, no. Jean, using MJ's body, kissed Peter. MJ was not present. Her mind was not present. It was dormant. Jean's mind is the one that was present, so no. Ned remembers Peter. That is the most obvious interpretation of the final scene of the movie, and I am making this video because I was just shocked, honestly, by the very loud minority of people that didn't get it. I mean, some are actually saying that this scene is not meant to say that Ned is remembering Peter Parker and their history before the spell, but that instead all this is Ned remembering, oh, wait a second, earlier, MJ called Spider-Man Peter. You're Spider-Man? Oh my God, no, because context, okay, context. What would that have fuck all to do with the handshake? What would that have fuck all to do with the shaking of the head, the blink, the cadence in which he says Peter's name? That moment earlier in the film when Ned does hear MJ call Spider-Man Peter, it's fun, and it of course matters, it's intentional, it didn't happen by accident, but it is not the one thing Ned is remembering in this moment. It is merely serving as a piece to the breaking of the dam that has come at the end of the movie. This scene, the look on Peter's face, his last-ditch effort to see if Ned remembers the handshake through muscle memory, Ned then confirming that he remembers the handshake through muscle memory, and then looking at Peter like he is remembering him for the first time in forever. It was, of course, no argument, 110% Ned remembering Peter. And to anyone who says different, look, I'm sorry, I love you all, but you're wrong. And if you took the scene in any other way, and let me tell you why this has me so heated, right? Because this is, of course, a silly thing to be upset about. It's a Spider-Man movie, and we're talking about a magic spell and the mechanics in universe of how all this made-up bullshit works. I think the reason this debate has me so angry is because it is lending credence to my theory/fear that movies, especially movies that are designed for streaming, which is becoming more and more often, I think even theatrical films are starting to be cut and designed for streaming. Movies are getting dumber and dumber, I think because audiences are getting dumber and dumber, or at least movie studios and filmmakers think audiences are getting dumber and dumber. And with arguments like this that Ned didn't remember, I worry we're proving them right. Gone are the days of subtlety, using context clues and critical thinking. Now we're in the era of let's spell everything out as clearly as possible, hold your hand through the whole thing, repeat the plot 6 times, and make sure that the dipshits who are only paying half attention because they're also scrolling TikTok are able to keep up and understand the movie, even while only dedicating half their attention to it. And I also know that a lot of the goobers in my comment section on Twitter are likely bots or just people, baiting for response. And I honestly hope that's more so the case than there actually being like a significant number of people that didn't get the ending. And again, I think it's a very vocal minority, but still, I just can't for the life of me understand how anyone can come out of that scene with Peter's desperate look of please remember, and then that face turning to sheer joy when Ned says, Peter. I don't see how you can take that for anything other than yes, Ned remembers. How can you just ignore the whole handshake a bit and Ned remembering the handshake from his body basically going into autopilot? I don't get it. I don't, but I digress. That's okay. I do kind of like my theory though, the idea that perhaps Doctor Strange cast the spell as a neurosurgeon knowing, hey, I'm gonna be a little bit of a Galen Erso here and put a flaw in the design of the Death Star, a flaw in the design of this spell, so that there is a loophole to get through via muscle memory. I think that would be a cool revelation later on. But let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. I've been Colton Ogburn. I'll see you next time. Bye!